The gym bag wasn't mine. That's what should have been my first clue, but apparently I'm the kind of genius who needs a sledgehammer to the face before I notice the obvious. There I was, 38 years old, standing in our driveway at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, holding a black Nike bag that smelled like expensive cologne and bad decisions. My name's Tom Rourke, and I fix computers for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me in the shadows where I can observe people without them noticing. Turns out that skill would come in handy. Jenny, my wife of 12 years, had forgotten the bag in her trunk. She'd rushed inside to shower after another late night at the gym, muttering something about protein shakes and client consultations. I'd offered to grab her stuff from the car because I'm helpful like that. Stupid, but helpful. The bag was heavier than expected. I unzipped it, thinking I'd find her usual collection of workout clothes and energy bars. Instead, I found men's boxer briefs, size large, a bottle of Tom Ford cologne, and a handwritten note on gym letterhead that made my blood freeze. Property of C. Thanks for the extra workout tonight. Same time tomorrow, J. Jenny's handwriting. No question about it. I stood there in the cold October air, holding evidence of my wife's affair like it was a live grenade. The rational part of my brain started cataloging details. The cologne was expensive, probably $200. The underwear was Calvin Klein, not the Walmart brand I wore. The note was written on Gold's Gym stationery, where Jenny worked as a personal trainer. C had to be Chad DeWitt, her business partner. 6'2", perfectly sculpted, with the kind of smile that made middle-aged women sign up for overpriced training packages. I'd met him at gym events, watched him work the room like a politician, all charm and white teeth. He was married to Melanie, a sharp-eyed accountant who always looked like she was calculating something unpleasant. The front door opened, and Jenny appeared in her bathrobe, hair still wet from the shower. "Tom? What are you doing out there? It's freezing." I looked at her, this woman I'd loved since college, and felt something cold settle in my chest. She was beautiful, always had been. 5'6", blonde hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that made other men stare. But standing there in the porch light, she looked like a stranger. "Just getting your bag," I said, zipping it closed. "You forgot it in the trunk." She walked down the steps, bare feet on cold concrete, and took the bag from my hands. For a second, our fingers touched, and I wondered if she felt anything. Guilt, maybe, fear of getting caught. But her expression was blank, almost bored. "Thanks. I need that stuff for tomorrow's early session." "With Chad?" Something flickered in her eyes. "Among others. You know how busy Tuesdays are." I knew. I'd heard all about her busy schedule, the late nights, the weekend seminars, the client dinners that ran until midnight. I'd believed every word because I trusted her, because I was an idiot. "Right," I said. "Busy." We went inside, and Jenny disappeared upstairs while I sat in the living room, staring at the muted TV. A commercial for life insurance played, some smiling family gathered around a dinner table, protected and secure. I laughed, but it came out like a bark. My phone buzzed. A text from Ray, my neighbor and drinking buddy. "Beer tomorrow night? Melissa's working late again." Ray was divorced, had been for 3 years. He'd tried to warn me once, in that careful way men do when they don't want to overstep. "Just keep your eyes open, Tom. Marriage is like a business partnership. When one person stops investing, the other person usually finds a new partner." I'd brushed him off then. Now his words felt prophetic. I texted back, "Yeah, I'll bring the good stuff." Upstairs, I could hear Jenny moving around, getting ready for bed. The water ran in the bathroom sink. Drawers opened and closed. Normal sounds of a normal evening in a normal marriage. Except nothing was normal anymore. She came to bed wearing one of my old t-shirts, which should have been comforting but felt like mockery. We lay there in the dark, 18 inches apart, not touching. The space between us felt like a canyon. "Tom?" Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "Are you okay?" You seem distant lately." The irony was staggering. She was asking me about being distant while her lover's underwear sat in a gym bag downstairs. "Just tired," I said. "Work's been crazy. Maybe you should take some time off. We could go somewhere. Remember that bed and breakfast in Vermont we talked about?" "Yeah, maybe." But even as she said it, I could hear the lie in her voice, the forced enthusiasm. She didn't want to go anywhere with me. This was guilt talking, or maybe just habit. The things you say to maintain the illusion of a marriage. She rolled over, and within minutes her breathing became deep and regular. Jenny had always been able to sleep anywhere, anytime. It was a talent I'd envied until now. How do you sleep soundly when you're living a double life? Practice, I supposed. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, my mind working through possibilities and plans. By the time the alarm went off, I'd made a decision. Jenny wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. I was good at fixing things. And when something couldn't be fixed, I was even better at taking it apart. The next 3 weeks turned me into a detective, and I discovered I had a talent for it. 12 years of marriage had taught me Jenny's routines, her passwords, her weaknesses. She'd grown careless, confident in my supposed ignorance. Our home security system became my best friend. Jenny had insisted we install it 2 years ago after a break-in down the street. For peace of mind, she'd said. Now it was giving me peace of mind of a different sort. The cameras covered the front door, back door, and living room, all motion activated, all streaming to an app on my phone. I started checking the footage during my lunch breaks. Most days showed nothing interesting. Jenny leaving for work, coming home, the usual domestic routine. But on Thursdays, something different happened. The living room camera would activate around 2 in the afternoon, showing Jenny and Chad on our couch, supposedly discussing business. Except, business meetings don't usually involve someone's shirt coming off. The first time I watched it happen, I felt sick. Actually physically nauseous, like I'd eaten bad meat. Jenny, my wife, the woman who complained when I left dishes in the sink, was straddling Chad DeWitt on the couch I'd bought for our 10th anniversary. The couch where we watched movies, where she curled up with her book club novels, where I'd held her during her mother's funeral. The second time I watched, the nausea was replaced by something colder. Calculation. I started taking screenshots, saving video files, building a case like I was preparing for trial. Jenny's phone was another gold mine. She'd never changed her passcode from our anniversary date, which would have been sweet if it wasn't so stupid. Her text messages with Chad were a masterclass in infidelity. They had pet names for each other. He was trainer. She was star client. They made plans, shared inside jokes, complained about their respective spouses. One conversation made me want to throw the phone through a window. Chad. Tom suspect anything? Jenny. Are you kidding? He's completely oblivious. I could probably bring you to dinner and he'd just ask about your workout routine. Chad. LOL. Poor bastard. Jenny. He's sweet but so boring, no ambition, you know, content to fix computers forever. Chad. Not like us, we're going places. Jenny. Speaking of which, when are you leaving Melanie? I'm getting tired of sneaking around. Chad. Soon. Just need to figure out the financial stuff. She handles all our money. That last part was interesting. Chad was cheating on his wife, but he was also using her. Melanie DeWitt was a CPA with her own practice, probably made twice what Chad earned as a personal trainer. He needed her money, but wanted my wife. It was almost poetic. I started paying attention to Chad's social media, which was a shrine to his own ego. Daily workout videos, motivational quotes, shirtless selfies with captions like, "Grinding for greatness" and "Your only competition is who you were yesterday." The comments were mostly from women, including Jenny under her maiden name. But the real treasure was in his business practices. Chad was cutting corners, selling supplements without proper licensing, training clients without insurance. He was also dealing steroids, though he was careful about it. The evidence was there if you knew how to look. Coded language in his DMs, cash transactions, clients who suddenly bulked up in impossible time frames. Jenny was one of those clients. I'd noticed her body changing over the past 6 months, thought she was just working out harder. But now I recognized the signs Ray had told me about when his ex-wife got involved with her trainer. The muscle definition, the mood swings, the sudden interest in protein powder and supplements. I found her stash in the garage, hidden behind paint cans. Testosterone, growth hormone, some pills I couldn't identify. All illegal without a prescription. All purchased with money from our joint account. She was using my income to buy drugs from her lover. The betrayal was so complete, it was almost artistic. My breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. I was watching the security feed from my office, eating a sandwich and trying to focus on work, when Jenny and Chad appeared on screen. This time was different. They weren't just fooling around. They were talking seriously, holding hands, making plans. I turned up the volume and heard Jenny say, "I think it's time. I can't keep pretending with Tom. It's not fair to any of us." Chad nodded. "After the new year? That gives us time to get everything sorted." I feel terrible about it, but you're right. Tom deserves someone who really loves him. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She felt terrible, but not terrible enough to stop screwing around. She wanted me to have someone who really loved me, but she was planning to destroy my life first. And she was going to wait until after Christmas, probably so she wouldn't have to deal with the awkwardness of explaining to her family why she wasn't bringing me to holiday dinners. That night, Jenny made my favorite dinner, pot roast with mashed potatoes. She was being extra attentive, asking about my day, laughing at my jokes, playing the perfect wife. It was a performance, and I was the only audience member who knew it was fake. "Tom," she said as we were cleaning up, "I've been thinking about us lately." Here it comes, I thought, the setup for the eventual breakup conversation. Plant the seeds now, let them grow over the next few months, then act like the relationship's natural end was a mutual decision. "Yeah? What about us?" I want to make sure we're both happy. Really happy. We've been together so long, sometimes I wonder if we're just going through the motions. Are we?" She looked at me with what I'm sure she thought was sincerity. "I don't know. Are you happy, Tom?" It was a loaded question, designed to make me examine our relationship and find it wanting. If I said yes, I was lying to myself. If I said no, I was opening the door to her eventual exit strategy. "I thought I was," I said. "But lately, I've been wondering the same thing." Her face brightened slightly. "Really? Maybe we should talk about it more, figure out what we both need." What she needed was permission to leave without feeling guilty. What I needed was revenge. "Sure," I said, "but not tonight. I'm tired." She kissed my cheek, and I smelled Chad's cologne on her skin. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That night, I called Ray. "I need your help with something," I said. "What kind of help?" "The kind that might get messy." Ray was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Jenny?" "Yeah. I'll be right over." Ray showed up with a 6-pack of beer and the grim expression of a man who'd been through this before. We sat in my garage, away from the house cameras, and I laid out everything I'd discovered. The affair, the drugs, the plans to leave me after Christmas. "Jesus, Tom, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Help me figure out what to do about it." Ray had been a cop for 15 years before retiring early with a bad back and a worse attitude toward human nature. He understood evidence, procedure, and the importance of staying within legal boundaries. "First thing," he said, opening a beer, "you document everything, every text, every video, every financial transaction. Build a case like you're going to court because you probably are. Already on it. Second, you figure out what you want. You want her back? You want revenge? You want to just Walk away clean? I'd been thinking about that question for days. Did I want Jenny back? The woman I'd fallen in love with in college, who used to laugh at my jokes and steal my hoodies and talk about growing old together? That woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed. What was left was a stranger who looked like my wife, but treated me like an obstacle to her happiness. I want her to face consequences, I said. Real ones. I want everyone to see who she really is. Ray nodded. That's revenge. Nothing wrong with it, as long as you're smart about it. You go too far, you become the bad guy. You don't go far enough, nothing changes. What would you do? Honestly, I'd burn it all down. But I'm divorced and bitter, so maybe don't take my advice. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Ray knew people, private investigators, lawyers, accountants who specialized in forensic work. He also knew Chad DeWitt's reputation around town. Guy's a walking lawsuit waiting to happen, Ray said. Melanie's been covering for him for years, cleaning up his messes, keeping him out of trouble. Word is she's getting tired of it. That gave me an idea. Think she'd be interested in comparing notes? About her cheating husband? Probably. But approach her wrong, and she'll warn Chad. Then you lose the element of surprise. I needed to be careful. Melanie DeWitt was smart, successful, and had her own reasons for wanting to protect her marriage. But she also had her own reasons for wanting to know the truth. The opportunity came the following Saturday. Jenny was at a team-building retreat with Chad and the other trainers, which meant I had the weekend to myself. I drove to the coffee shop near Melanie's office, knowing she often worked weekends during tax season. She was there, laptop open, surrounded by papers and looking frustrated. I'd only met her a few times at gym events, but she was hard to forget. Mid-30s, dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to see through whatever bullshit you were selling. I bought 2 coffees and approached her table. Melanie? Tom Rourke, Jenny's husband. She looked up, surprised. Tom, hi. What brings you here? Coffee and conversation. Mind if I sit? She gestured to the empty chair, and I sat down, sliding one of the coffees toward her. Thanks. You're not with Jenny at the retreat? Wasn't invited. Spouses aren't included in team-building activities. Something in my tone must have caught her attention because her expression shifted slightly. Everything okay? This was the moment of truth. I could make small talk, finish my coffee, and leave. Or I could take the risk that might change everything. That depends, I said. How well do you know your husband's work schedule? The question hung in the air between us. Melanie's face went very still. Why do you ask? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots from the security footage. Jenny and Chad on my couch, his hand on her thigh, both of them laughing at something. Melanie stared at the image for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were cold as winter. How long? She asked. At least 6 months that I can prove. Probably longer. She nodded slowly, like she was processing information she'd suspected but hadn't wanted to confirm. I wondered. He's been different lately. More secretive, more critical of me. Classic signs, but I told myself I was being paranoid. You're not paranoid. No, I'm not. She studied the photo again. This was taken in your house? My living room, Thursday afternoons usually. When you're at work and I'm supposed to be oblivious. Melanie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Thursday afternoons. He told me he was doing private sessions at the gym, building his client base. He is building something. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 people whose lives had just been rewritten by a single photograph. What do you want, Tom? I want them to face consequences. Both of them. But I want to do it smart, legally, without destroying myself in the process. And you think I can help with that? I think you have access to Chad's financial records. I think you know where the bodies are buried, business-wise. And I think you're as tired of being played for a fool as I am. Melanie closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. What kind of consequences are we talking about? Social embarrassment, financial complications, professional difficulties, the kind of problems that happen when people make bad choices and those choices become public knowledge. She considered this. Chad's been sloppy with his taxes, unreported income, questionable deductions, some business practices that wouldn't survive scrutiny. I've been covering for him, but if someone were to file a complaint with the IRS, that someone wouldn't be you, of course. Of course not. But if evidence of his activities happened to surface through other channels, I'd have to report it. Professional obligation. I smiled. I like the way you think. I haven't agreed to anything yet. But you're considering it? She was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the parking lot where her BMW sat next to my 10-year-old Honda. Chad thinks I'm weak, she said finally. He thinks because I love him, I'll put up with anything. Maybe it's time to show him how wrong he is. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet again in a few days. As I got up to leave, Melanie called my name. Tom? That photo you showed me. Do you have others? Hours of video, text messages, financial records showing money spent on hotels, gifts, supplements. Supplements? The illegal kind. Chad's been dealing steroids to clients, including my wife. Melanie's expression hardened. That idiot. I told him to stay away from that stuff. The liability alone could destroy us. Not us, I said. Him. You didn't know about it, remember? She nodded slowly. Right. I had no idea. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not for my marriage. That was over. Had probably been over for years. But hope for justice. Hope for consequences. Hope that actions might finally have meaning again. Jenny was still at her retreat, probably planning her exit strategy with Chad while pretending to do trust falls and team exercises. Let her plan. I was making plans of my own, and mine were better. The beauty of having a cheating wife who works in fitness is that her entire life revolves around image and reputation. Jenny had spent years building her brand as a health and wellness expert, posting workout videos on social media, giving nutrition advice, presenting herself as the embodiment of clean living and moral fiber. All of that was about to become very ironic. Melanie and I met twice more over the next week, comparing notes and coordinating our approach. She'd done her homework, pulling together a comprehensive file on Chad's business activities. The man was a walking violation of state and federal regulations. He's been selling steroids for 2 years, she told me over lunch at a restaurant across town. Cash only, no records, marketing them as specialty supplements. The profit margins are insane. How much are we talking about? At least $50,000 in unreported income last year, maybe more. That was serious money, the kind that attracted serious attention from serious people with badges and arrest warrants. There's more, Melanie continued. He's been training clients without proper certification, using the gym's insurance but not reporting the sessions. If someone got hurt during an off-book session, it would be fraud. Has anyone gotten hurt? Not yet, but he's been pushing people too hard, especially the women. Dangerous weight loads, unsafe techniques. It's only a matter of time. I thought about Jenny's recent mood swings, her complaints about joint pain, the way she'd been pushing herself harder and harder in pursuit of some impossible standard of perfection. The steroids, I said. How dangerous are they? Depends on the type and dosage. But Chad's not a doctor, and he's not monitoring anyone. He's just selling whatever he can get his hands on. That settled it. This wasn't just about adultery anymore. Chad was endangering people, including my wife, for profit. And Jenny was complicit, using our money to buy illegal drugs while presenting herself as a fitness expert. We decided to start with the gym. Gold's Gym was part of a national chain, which meant corporate oversight, insurance requirements, and zero tolerance for liability issues. An anonymous tip about steroid dealing and unlicensed training would trigger an investigation that Chad couldn't charm his way out of. I spent that evening crafting the perfect complaint. Not too detailed, that would seem suspicious, but specific enough to be credible, with dates, times, and activities that could be verified. I sent it to the corporate complaint line, the state licensing board, and the local police tip line. Then I waited. The response was faster than I'd expected. By Wednesday, there were 2 corporate investigators at the gym, interviewing staff and reviewing records. By Friday, Chad was suspended pending a full audit of his activities. Jenny came home that night in a panic. "Something's happening at work," she said, pacing around the kitchen while I made dinner. "Chad's been suspended. They're saying someone reported him for selling drugs." "Drugs?" I tried to sound shocked. "Like what kind of drugs?" "Steroids, performance enhancers. It's ridiculous. Chad would never do anything like that." The lie came so easily, so naturally. She genuinely believed her own bullshit, or she was a better actress than I'd given her credit for. "Maybe it's a misunderstanding," I said. "These things usually get sorted out." "I hope so. This could destroy his career, our careers. We're business partners." "Right, business partners." She missed the sarcasm completely, too wrapped up in her own drama to notice mine. "The worst part is, they're interviewing all his clients, asking about supplements, training methods, payment arrangements. It's humiliating." "Have they talked to you yet?" "Tomorrow. I'm terrified, Tom. What if they ask about things I don't know how to answer?" "Like what?" I wondered. "Like why you've been buying illegal steroids with our money? Like why you've been having sex with your business partner every Thursday afternoon? Like why you've been planning to leave your husband while pretending everything is fine?" "Just tell the truth," I said. "You've got nothing to hide." That night, Jenny couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, got up to check her phone, paced around the house. I pretended to sleep while listening to her stress-induced insomnia. Part of me felt guilty for causing her distress, but a larger part felt satisfied. This was just the beginning. The next day, while Jenny was at the gym dealing with investigators, I put Phase 2 into motion. I'd been monitoring Chad's social media accounts, waiting for the right opportunity. It came in the form of a motivational post about overcoming adversity and staying strong in the face of challenges. I created a fake account and left a comment. "Easy to stay strong when you're juicing. Roidrage, Shopju Fake Fitness." Within an hour, other comments appeared. Clients asking questions, competitors making accusations, former friends piling on with their own suspicions. Social media was a beautiful thing when it turned against you. But the real damage came from an unexpected source. One of Chad's former clients, a woman named Lisa who'd been pushed too hard during training and injured her back, saw the news coverage and decided to file a lawsuit. Suddenly, Chad wasn't just dealing with corporate investigators and licensing boards. He was dealing with personal injury lawyers. Jenny came home that evening looking like she'd aged 5 years in one day. "It's a nightmare," she said, collapsing on the couch. The same couch where she'd been cheating on me for months. "They're treating Chad like a criminal, and now there's a lawsuit." "What kind of lawsuit?" "Some woman claiming he injured her during training. She wants damages for medical bills, lost wages, pain, and suffering. Her lawyer is saying Chad was negligent, that he was using dangerous methods." "Was he?" Jenny looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Of course not. Chad's a professional. He knows what he's doing." "Then he should be fine, right? Truth is a defense." "It's not that simple, Tom. Even if we win, the legal costs will bankrupt us, and the publicity, our reputation will be destroyed." Our reputation, still talking like they were a team, like their fates were linked, still not seeing the bigger picture. "Maybe you should distance yourself from Chad until this gets sorted out," I suggested. "Protect your own career." "I can't do that. He needs support right now. We're partners." Partners. The word she'd never used to describe our marriage, but applied so easily to her relationship with her lover. That weekend, Melanie called with an update. "The IRS is interested," she said. "Very interested. They're opening a formal investigation into Chad's finances. How long will that take? Months, probably. But in the meantime, they've frozen his accounts. He can't access any of his money until the investigation is complete. What about your joint accounts? I moved my money out last week. Told him it was to protect us from the lawsuit. He believed me. Melanie was proving to be a valuable ally. She understood the long game, the importance of patience and positioning. Chad was bleeding from multiple wounds now, professional, legal, financial, and he didn't even know who was holding the knife. But I wasn't done yet. The first strike had been about damaging Chad's reputation and livelihood. The second strike would be more personal, designed to destroy the fantasy that he and Jenny had built around their relationship. It was time to let Jenny know that her secret wasn't as secret as she thought. The opportunity to confront Jenny came sooner than expected. She'd been spending more time at Chad's apartment, helping him deal with his mounting legal problems. At least that's what she told me. In reality, I knew from the security footage that they were using the crisis to justify spending more time together, turning his professional disaster into an excuse for their personal relationship. On a Tuesday evening, Jenny announced she'd be staying overnight at Chad's place to help him prepare for his meeting with lawyers. He's falling apart, Tom. I can't abandon him now. The audacity was breathtaking. She was asking for permission to spend the night with her lover, framing it as an act of friendship and professional loyalty. Of course, I said. Help him however you can. She kissed my cheek and left with an overnight bag, probably thinking she was being clever. What she didn't know was that I'd already made my own plans for the evening. I waited until midnight, then drove to Chad's apartment complex. His BMW was in the parking lot, along with Jenny's Honda. I parked across the street and called Melanie. They're both here, I said. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure. Melanie arrived 20 minutes later, driving her Lexus and looking like she was heading to a business meeting rather than confronting her cheating husband. She was dressed professionally, hair perfect, makeup flawless. If she was nervous, it didn't show. Ready? She asked. Ready. We walked up to Chad's second-floor apartment. I had a key. Jenny had given it to me months ago, back when she was still pretending their relationship was purely professional. In case of emergencies, she'd said. This qualified. I unlocked the door as quietly as possible. The apartment was dark, except for light coming from the bedroom. We could hear voices, laughter, the kind of intimate conversation that happens between lovers who think they're alone. Melanie pulled out her phone and started recording. We crept closer to the bedroom, where the door was partially open. Through the gap, we could see Jenny and Chad in bed together, naked, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about their future. After this legal stuff gets sorted out, Chad was saying, we should think about opening our own gym, get away from corporate oversight, make our own rules. With what money? Jenny asked. The lawsuits are going to cost everything. Melanie's got money, and Tom's probably got some savings. Divorce settlements can be generous if you play them right. They were planning to use their spouse's money to fund their new life together. The calculation was so cold, so casual, that I felt my anger crystallize into something harder and more focused. Jenny laughed. Poor Tom. He's going to be devastated when I leave him. He really thinks we're happy. Poor bastard never saw it coming, but he'll get over it. Guys like him always do. They find some other woman to fix their computers and cook their dinners. He's a good man, Jenny said, with the tone of someone discussing a pet they're planning to give away. Just boring. No ambition, no passion. I need more than that. You deserve more than that. They kissed, and I felt Melanie tense beside me. She'd heard enough. We backed away from the bedroom and positioned ourselves in the living room. Melanie kept recording while I turned on the lights. Don't stop on our account, I called out. You two make a lovely couple. The reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Scrambling, shouting, the sound of people trying to get dressed while panicking. Chad appeared first, wearing boxers and a guilty expression that would have been comical if it wasn't so pathetic. "Tom, what are you doing here? How did you get in?" Jenny gave me a key for emergencies. This seemed like an emergency. Jenny emerged from the bedroom in one of Chad's t-shirts, her face pale with shock and fear. "Tom, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for why you're naked in another man's bed, planning to divorce me and take my money to fund your new business venture." She looked at Melanie, who was still recording, and her expression shifted from fear to desperation. "Melanie, please don't what?" Melanie's voice was ice cold. "Don't record my husband cheating on me. Don't document the conversation where you two plan to steal from your spouses. Little late for that, don't you think?" Chad tried to take control of the situation. "Look, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like adultery," I said. "It looks like fraud. It looks like two people who thought they were smarter than everyone else, but were actually just more dishonest." "Tom, please," Jenny said, tears starting to flow. "Let me explain. It just happened. We didn't plan this. You didn't plan to cheat on me for 6 months? You didn't plan to buy steroids with our money? You didn't plan to leave me after Christmas? Because I have evidence that suggests otherwise." The color drained from her face. "What evidence?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the security footage, the text messages, the financial records. Her whole body seemed to collapse as she realized how thoroughly I documented her betrayal. "You've been watching me," she whispered. "I've been protecting myself. Good thing, too, since you've been planning to destroy my life." Chad stepped forward, trying to assert some kind of masculine authority. "Now wait a minute." "Shut up," Melanie said sharply. "You've done enough talking for one night." She stopped recording and looked at both of them with disgust. "Here's what's going to happen. Chad, you're going to pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay tonight. Tomorrow, you're going to call a lawyer and discuss divorce terms. And if you even think about trying to take half of my assets, I'll make sure every piece of evidence we've collected tonight ends up in the hands of prosecutors, licensing boards, and your remaining clients." "Melanie, honey, don't. Just don't." Jenny looked at me with desperate eyes. "Tom, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, fix our marriage. Our marriage ended the first time you had sex with him. Everything since then has been you lying to my face while planning your exit strategy. That's not true. I love you. You love the security I provide. You love having someone to pay the bills while you play house with your trainer. But you don't love me, and you haven't for a long time." The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. Jenny started crying harder, but they were selfish tears, the kind people cry when they're caught rather than when they're sorry. "What do you want?" Chad asked. "Money? We can work something out." "I want consequences," I said. "Real ones. For both of you." Melanie and I left them there, two people who'd thought they were writing their own love story but had actually been digging their own graves. In the parking lot, she turned to me with something that might have been respect. "That was satisfying," she said. "That was just the beginning." The next morning, Jenny came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her makeup was smeared, her clothes wrinkled, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked like shell shock. She found me in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the news like it was any other Wednesday. "Tom, we need to talk." "Do we?" She sat down across from me, and I could see her trying to figure out how to play this. The wronged wife seeking forgiveness, the confused woman who'd made a mistake, the victim of circumstances beyond her control. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I said, and realized it was true. Anger was hot, impulsive, destructive. What I felt was colder and more purposeful. Angry would imply I was surprised by what I found last night. "You knew?" "I've known for months. The question is what we do about it now." She leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. "We could try counseling. Work through this. Lots of couples survive infidelity. Lots of couples don't plan to rob each other blind while they're cheating. That stopped her cold. She'd forgotten about the conversation Melanie and I had recorded, the casual discussion of using their spouse's money to fund their new life together. That was just talk. We weren't serious. You were serious enough to research divorce lawyers, serious enough to move money around, serious enough to plan your exit strategy down to the timing. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it reflexively. A text from Chad, probably. Even now, in the middle of our conversation about saving our marriage, she was still connected to him. "Turn off the phone," I said. "What?" "If you want to have this conversation, turn off the phone. Show me that for once, I have your full attention." She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Even caught, even exposed, even facing the destruction of her marriage, she couldn't fully disconnect from him. "It's not that simple, Tom. Chad's going through a crisis right now. Chad's crisis is not your responsibility anymore. Unless you're choosing him over me, in which case, we don't need to have this conversation at all." She stared at the phone like it was a lifeline, and I realized she was already gone. Had probably been gone for months, just going through the motions while she figured out how to leave without looking like the bad guy. "I need time to think," she said finally. "No, you don't. You need to make a choice, right now. Him or me, the marriage or the affair. You can't have both anymore." "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being clear. Something you haven't been in a very long time." She stood up, phone in hand, and I knew what her choice was before she said it. I can't just abandon Chad when he needs me most. That's not the kind of person I am. "No, you're the kind of person who abandons her husband while pretending everything is fine. Much better." She flinched but didn't back down. "I'll stay at my sister's for a few days. Give us both some space to figure this out. Take all the space you need, but understand that when you walk out that door, you're making a choice, and choices have consequences." She left an hour later with 2 suitcases and a guilty expression. I watched from the window as she loaded her car, probably texting Chad to let him know she was free. The marriage was over, had been over for months, but now it was officially dead. I called Melanie. "Jenny's moved out," I said. "Chad's been calling me all morning, wants to work things out. Apparently his legal problems have given him a new appreciation for financial security." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to call my lawyer. Then I filed for divorce." That was fast. "I don't believe in dragging out the inevitable. He made his choice. Now he gets to live with it." I envied her clarity, her ability to cut through emotion and see the situation for what it really was. My own feelings were more complicated. Grief for the marriage I'd thought I had, anger at the years of deception, satisfaction at finally having the truth in the open. But mostly, I felt relieved. The pretending was over. The careful performance of domestic happiness had finally ended. Whatever came next, at least it would be real. Over the next few days, the consequences started multiplying. The gym fired Jenny for violating their ethics policy. Employees weren't supposed to have relationships with business partners, especially business partners under investigation for illegal activities. Chad's lawyer fees were mounting, and with his accounts frozen, he couldn't pay them. The personal injury lawsuit was moving forward, and more former clients were coming forward with their own complaints. The local news picked up the story. Fitness trainer under investigation for steroid distribution. Chad's photo appeared on the evening news, along with footage of him leaving the courthouse after a hearing. His reputation was destroyed, his career over, his marriage ended. Jenny called me after seeing the news coverage. "This is insane, Tom. They're treating him like a drug dealer." "He is a drug dealer. He's been selling steroids for years." "Supplements? He was selling supplements. Illegal supplements, without a license, for cash. That's drug dealing. You don't understand the fitness industry." "I understand crime, and I understand consequences. Chad broke the law, and now he's paying for it." "You did this," she said, and for the first time I heard real anger in her voice. You reported him. You destroyed his life. He destroyed his own life. I just made sure people knew about it. And what about me? What about my career? What about it? I'm unemployed, Tom. Blacklisted. No gym will hire me after this scandal. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your business partner and buying steroids with our money. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need money. For rent, for food, for basic survival. I know you're angry, but I'm still your wife. You're my wife when it's convenient. When you need something. The rest of the time, you're Chad's girlfriend. The divorce isn't final. File the papers. Today. Because if you don't, I will. And my version won't be as generous as yours would have been. She hung up without another word. That evening, Ray came over with pizza and beer. We sat in the living room, watching a baseball game and not talking about the obvious. Finally, he said, "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. Worse than I hoped." "Any regrets?" I thought about it. About the marriage ending? No. About the way it ended? Sometimes. But she made her choices. I just made sure those choices had consequences. And now? Now I figure out what comes next. Ray nodded. For what it's worth, I think you handled it right. Could have been messier. It's not over yet. What do you mean? I looked around the living room, at the house Jenny and I had shared for 8 years, at the life we'd built together before she decided she wanted something different. She's going to come back, I said, when Chad's money runs out, when the reality of her situation hits, when she realizes that leaving me was a mistake. She's going to want to reconcile. And I'm going to say no.